Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the show. I am Illogical Lefty, and I've got a great show for you today on this Wednesday, April 23rd, 2025. Oh boy. All right. First of all, I've got some polling here that is likely going to make Donald Trump throw hamburgers at the wall. So, everybody watch out for the ketchup. Couple of polls on there. They are not good. Then JD Vance and his cursed world tour is it's getting deadly. Okay, JD Vance turns out source of bad luck. Okay, big surprise there. Then we have RFK Jr. and his continuous war apparently against autistic people. So not good. I've got the details on that, including talking about one of his family members. Yeah, Rosemary Kennedy. So that is horrific. The details on that, and then we have a Ron DeSantis scandal. Hmm. What is Florida without another healthcare scandal? Of course. And then finally, a liberal podcaster who I've never heard of before, straight up destroys Rahm Emanuel to his face. I love it. You're gonna love that. Oh, you're gonna love that. All right. So before I dive into that, please like and share the stream. Very important that you do so. Helps us out greatly. As well as signing up to become a patron or a channel member or a subscriber if you're on Facebook. All that stuff goes to help us. All right. So anyway, before I dive in, Coffee Crow in the chat says, I'm pumped about the Oblivion remaster. Me too. Actually, I spent some time yesterday playing that. Once I was done with dinner and obviously work, like I could not get there fast enough to go and play the shit out of that. Okay, that's what I did yesterday. And it's probably what I'm going to do today. So I am super looking forward to it. It is absolutely beautiful. Also nostalgic because I grew up with that. Remember that game was released back in 2006. And as one of it actually was the first Elder Scrolls game I had ever picked up. I'm sorry, but I missed Morrowind. I also heard that was really, really, really good. So maybe, I don't know, maybe they might remaster that one. One can hope. But Oblivion, that was my first Elder Scrolls game, and unforgettable. Okay, so can't wait to have fun and play that later on today. But that said, it's weird. It's been a very Bethesda like week for me because not only are the missus and I watching Fallout the series, which is really really well done by the way. I'm also playing Oblivion. I mean, it's really really funny how that works out. So, hey, that's great. And it's also great too. Just last thing on that subject, okay? Seeing other developers congratulate Bethesda on a successful bug-free launch of their Oblivion remaster, it's awesome. I love to see video game developer solidarity because there are a lot of problems with the video game industry. I don't think any of it really has to do with the workers. It actually has to do with the companies themselves, the corporate shareholders, CEOs, management, etc. But like when it comes to the developers, I don't know. I feels like a lot of them don't get treated very fairly, and I have talked about that. Some of the working conditions at these companies. What was it? BioWare Magic. I talked about that. The crunch culture at Blizzard, and so as well as of course the rampant sexual harassment and abuse at Blizzard. So there's that. But like, hey, I like to see some solidarity with the workers, because that's where my heart is at. I will always defend workers, and help, basically promote better working conditions, because that's everybody deserves to work in a decent, safe place. And that includes, by the way, female developers, which are already a rare thing, because of how male dominated the industry actually is. So, um, special shout out to those female developers, that shouldn't have to put up with all that crap, but they do, and then put out great games. Because I don't think the gaming industry would be nearly as good as it is without those female developers. In fact, we probably wouldn't even have computing, if it weren't for women. So let's be clear about that. All right. That said, why don't we get to some politics? I know I could sit there and talk about video games like the whole freaking hour, but that's probably not what you're interested in. Okay, it's not what you're here to listen to. No, you're here to listen to some politics stuff. So, and we definitely got that. So why don't we dive in? We'll start out with Donald Trump killing the Republican Party. Ooh, I like that. I like that a lot. All right. It appears that support for the Republican Party is collapsing under President Donald Trump's disastrous leadership. That's right.
Oh, no!
According to several surveys, Americans, by and large, are not exactly happy with Trump's policies that have made the economy tank. Okay, things are not going well out there, and as a result, of course, Trump has backed off on a lot of his disastrous tariffs, which is hilarious to see. But the damage is already done. So let's get to the polling. An April 16th poll of 1,000 registered voters conducted by RMG Research, which is a public opinion research firm founded by conservative pollster Scott Rasmussen, yes, of Rasmussen, for Neapolitan News Service. They found that if election for Congress were held today, 48% would vote for a Democrat, 44% would vote for a Republican. So, look, that's plus or minus 3 on that. So you have an advantage for Democrats. Now, when you include those who lean Republican or Democrat, so you get the leaners, the independents, the Democratic lead increases to 50%, while Republican support increases to 45%. So, not very much excitement for Republican candidates. Gee, I wonder why. Now, that, of course, is a 7-point swing since February, according to the pollsters. Before Trump was inaugurated, Republicans had a 7-point lead over the Democrats. So, I mean, a bit of a disaster. It's almost like their policies are terrible and people hate them. Oh, weird. Weird. Look, it's weird, though, how they keep on winning, which is very strange. I wonder why. Oh, right. It's because they constantly lie about their plans and their policies. They call them Orwellian names, like the, Pro-America Puppies and Kittens Act, which, of course, has nothing to do with puppies, kittens, or being pro-America. It's like a fossil fuel bill or something like that. That's the kind of stuff that they do. Okay? They have entire think tanks out there dedicated to try to find a way to package up their terrible policies in a way that dupes the American people into supporting them. That's what they do. That's part of what they do, actually. The other part is that they will laser focus on a wedge issue that affects like 3 people. Okay? Trans girls in sports. Great example. There is a handful of trans girls who play sports in the entire country. Okay? A handful. And what did the Republicans focus on? Exclusively, trans girls in sports, trans girls in sports, trans girls in sports. That's it. I mean, that's what they do. Again, this is something that literally hurts no one, trans girls in sports, but it amps up the right-wing culture warriors so that they will vote against their own financial best interests. And not only that, but they also vote against women's rights. Yeah. Yeah, that's another thing Republicans have been doing, taking away women's rights. And they claim to want to be protectors of women. Please give me a freaking break. You're not protecting women. You're just trying to eliminate trans women, for one, and reduce women to being nothing more than breeders. That's the Republican policy. That's the plan here. Now, that said, this poll followed another one in April from the Neapolitan News Service survey, which suggested that 42% of respondents trust Democrats more than Republicans on inflation, while 38% trust Republicans more than Democrats on the same issue. So, I mean, that's an improvement there. An April 13th poll found for the first time since May of 2021, the Republican Party has been seen as less trustworthy than the Democrats with the nation's finances. It is amazing how people ever trust Republicans in the nation's finances. Every single, at least in my lifetime, recession or depression always comes after a Republican or during a Republican administration. Okay? They F it up so bad that there's a recession or a depression, and then Democrats have to spend their entire term trying to clean up the mess. And of course, then they're not really focused on, bringing the country forward, helping out with average working people. And of course, you have the donors that are partly to blame for that. But don't make me get into a whole thing about the problems with the Democratic Party, because there are problems. I'm focusing on the problems with the Republican Party right now. That said, all right, according to a CNBC poll of 1,000 Americans, 43% approve of Trump's handling of the economy, while 55% disapprove, marking the first time in a CNBC survey showing the president with a net negative on the economy. Oh, disaster. But that's not all. Oh, it gets worse. A new Reuters Ipsos poll found that just 37% of Americans approve of Donald Trump's handling of the economy. Still too high, but we're getting there. It's the lowest figure on the topic spanning both of his presidential terms. And let me be honest about that. Biden still scored lower on the economy. So let's be fair about that, right? But again, we're talking about inflation, which is a serious issue. And so you have these economic headwinds that the Democrats continue to face. Okay. And a lot of it is caused by either Republicans or mass corporate donors. Okay. Massive corporate donors that make sure to pay politicians to not solve these problems because, well, why? Why wouldn't they want to solve the problems? Well, because somebody's getting rich off these problems. Okay. And it's corporate America. That's why they didn't want to solve the inflation problem, because half of the inflation, remember, was caused by corporations, corporate greed. It's the greedflation. All right. So let's be very clear about that. But anyway, that 37% for Republicans for Trump's handling of the economy is the lowest figure on the topic, spanning both of Trump's presidential terms. So remember, at the end of Trump's first term, we were in an economic disaster as a result of COVID. And now it's even worse. Okay. His polling on the economy is even worse than back then. Disaster. Nearly 75% of Americans, yes, adults, say that they are worried about a recession now. And more than half of respondents, 56%, said Trump's retooling of the economy, if you want to call it retooling. I mean, I know that there's a tool here somewhere, okay? But they say that the retooling is too erratic. No kidding. And that includes about 1 in 4 Republican voters, so about a quarter. So congratulations. If you're wondering what's going on here and why this is different than the first Trump administration, let me tell you why. This is what happens when you unleash Trump. The reason that this is different is because than his first term is because Trump was restrained by the adults in the room. All right, so-called adults in the room. I may disagree with them, okay, on a lot of these issues. I mean, you get people like Steve Mnuchin in there. I don't like Steve Mnuchin at all. But the guy, at least to his credit, did not want to crash the global economy. Whereas Trump doesn't give a damn about the global economy. Look, he got rid of all those people, those adults. And now is giving us unadulterated Donald Trump. Which, shocker, is about as stupid as all of us imagined. Yes. Stupid. Look, here's the thing, though, okay? Donald Trump is doing exactly what he said he was going to do. He's going to do tariffs, massive deregulation, tax cuts for the rich. They're working on that. And the cutting of the government. That's it. He's doing a lot of the Project 2025 stuff. But not only that, but he's also doing his own thing, too. Both happen to be disastrous and unpopular. And since Donald Trump is the face of the party, because the party has fallen into lockstep with him, big shocker, they're declining too in popularity. And look, there is a long way, of course, until the midterm elections. Yes, I still believe we will have elections. At how much those elections will be weighted towards Republicans to help Donald Trump, I don't know. I can't say. But as long as there's still a vote, I'm going to be damn sure to show up and cast it. All right. But anyway, since there is a long way until those midterm elections, which could be a game changer and a way to try to stop Trump's destruction of the government, well, his policies will continue to take hold and drag us towards a recession. And that means the Republican Party is going to be in an even worse position when those midterms come around, unless they figure out a way to fix their mess, and which I don't really have a lot of faith in them to do so. It's like they're stuck with their mess, and because they're stuck with Donald Trump, because that's who they support. Lockstep. Okay. So right now, though, it is interesting because there are some Republicans talking about how, we should maybe think about taking our tariff powers back because then it turns out it's crashing the stock market and I'm losing money. Oops. And by the way, a few of them, not enough, but a couple of them, okay, Steve Bannon, are talking about raising taxes on millionaires. That's actually a good idea. We should raise taxes on millionaires. Okay. Millionaires and billionaires. That said, I doubt it's ever going to happen because the entire party is still beholden to their wealthy donors. But it is a conversation that they are having, or at least a couple of people are having. Of course, Steve Bannon's going to be persona non grata. Okay. Not for his white supremacy and racism. No. But because he will commit the cardinal sin of the Republican Party and actually talk about raising taxes on the rich. Yeah. I don't think it's ever going to happen. But if things get bad enough, they might end up promising it because it's extremely popular, but they have no intention of actually doing it. Or if they do it, I think that it would have enough loopholes in it to drive a semi through. So, but it does show you how badly Trump is destroying the Republican brand. And if it continues, then perhaps what Lindsey Graham had once said might come true. Remember, he said, if we nominate Trump, we will get destroyed and we will deserve it. Whisper of a dream. All right. Fun times. Now they're worried, asks Progressively Independent. Yeah, well, they're worried about their jobs. Always. All right. So, we move on here just a minute after my coffee, because there is not enough coffee in this world to keep up with the news cycle. Okay. Just took another generation to suffer another crash from the Republicans because humans have the attention span of a goldfish and the patience of a cat sitting through a bath until there are results. Ooh, I don't think you're entirely wrong there, Yuki Tenchi. So, all right, do it. Vice President J.D. Vance appears to be bad luck for anyone unfortunate enough to come across him on his cursed world tour. On Sunday, Vance briefly met with Pope Francis. Hours later, Francis died of a stroke. In fact, he posted on X, J.D. Vance did, on Monday, I just learned of the passing of Pope Francis. My heart goes out to the millions of Christians all over the world who loved him. Well, yeah, it's a lot better than the message sent by Marjorie Taylor Greene about the Pope. But anyway, he said, quote, I was happy to see him yesterday, though he was obviously very ill. What was funny about that is that originally the Pope was not going to meet with him, and instead had sent a guy to drill him about being more compassionate. So if you think about it, that was Pope Francis's last real big act, was to school J.D. Vance about, hey, you should stop being such an a-hole. Gotta love that. Now, that said, according to the Vatican, Pope Francis, who was 88, and he had bilateral pneumonia last month, which was pretty serious, he died from a cerebral stroke that led to coma and irreversible cardiocirculatory collapse. So, I mean, that's really awful. That said, the timing here of the Pope's unfortunate demise, because, look, I had issues with Pope Francis on some things, but he still is probably one of the best popes we've ever had in our lives. Okay, so problems aside, it's a huge loss, and I am kind of worried about what else is going to come out of the conclave. Okay, when they choose a new pope, is it going to be another Ratzinger? I don't know. I hope not. All right, but anyway, the timing here led to some jokes about how J.D. Vance killed the Pope. Listen up, liberals. Kills the Pope. Oh, come on. That is just, I mean, again, kind of hilarious, but super, super morbid. There's more. Meets J.D. Vance, dies of cringe. And then finally, we're getting a little artsy here with all the different, I think those are supposed to be J.D. Vance's. That is really, really good. Pope Francis haunted by countless apparitions of J.D. Vance. Final vision before the veil. Oh, boy. Okay. Now, that's not all, though. Okay. So, just hours after meeting with the Indian Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, there was a terrorist attack in India. 24 people were killed after gunmen fired at tourists in Kashmir on Tuesday. Vance also responded to this tragedy on X, saying, Usha and I extend our condolences to the victims of the devastating terrorist attack in Pahalgam, India. Over the past few days, we have been overcome by the beauty of this country and its people. Our thoughts and prayers are with them as they mourn this horrific attack. Vance had met with Modi in New Delhi, about 260 miles away from the attack, which was described as a terrorist attack launched by militants that were fighting against Indian rule. Officers told the Associated Press that in addition to the 24 killed, at least 36 people were injured, many of whom are in serious condition. So this was absolutely horrific. Okay, Indian President Draupadi Murmu called the incident a dastardly and inhuman act. Yeah, I would agree. That is absolutely horrific. Now, it's almost like bad things keep happening to places and to people where J.D. Vance goes. I mean, even before he met with Modi, people were saying, hey, something might happen to the Indian leader. Well, it didn't, but there still was a devastating terrorist attack. So it's pretty horrific. Now, yesterday, this is Dr. Jane 21 speaking on posting on X. Yesterday, J.D. Vance met Pope Francis in Vatican, and today Pope Francis passed away. Today, J.D. Vance arrived in India and meeting... Oh boy. Following the attacks, Red Fox suggested that Vance is actually cursed, while James Lee and a bunch of numbers warned that Vance better stay in Ohio as a hillbilly. Great advice. After he visited Vatican seeing Pope died, then he visited India, horrific attack followed. And Curio Guy posted, I can't help but feel that J.D. Vance brings misfortune. Yeah. Oh, if only he could bring misfortune to our White House. I'm putting it out there. Okay. But look, seriously though, I am not a superstitious person or anything, okay? But it's pretty bizarre. I mean, J.D. Vance becomes the VP. He visits the Pope dies, and then goes to India and there's a terror attack. That is both terrible and weird. And so, yes, is it a coincidence? Probably. But still, wow. That said, I don't think that's anything compared to what Trump and his merry band of dipshits is bringing to the United States. I mean, look, the economy is not doing well. People are losing their retirements. Their 401ks are crashing. Autistic people are about to be put into a database for who knows what reason, and none of it is good. Like it's 1930s Germany. You got trans people that have been denied their own existence, and we're only in the 4th month of this horrific and awful administration. If all of this, everything that has led up to this, is like a bellwether of what's the future is going to be, then it feels like, I don't know, things might continue to get even worse. Yikes. Yeah, JP Mandel. That's right. He is the harbinger of Trump end times. Oh, oh no. Make me bring up the Alex Jones.
It is an alien force, not of this world. It's not human intelligence. It's the devil, okay?
It is. It's the devil. Okay. It's the devil. Oh, it's been a while since I brought those out. Okay. Speaking of RFK Jr., this is a tough story. Oof. This is the worst timeline. And yet, for some reason, I believe that it could still get worser. Worser? I'm going with it. I'm going with it. Worser. Okay. Oi. All right. In what should probably be a gigantic warning sign that things are about to get very bad for disabled Americans, Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is planning on using private medical records to create a registry of people with autism in the United States. NIH director and vaccine skeptic Dr. J. Bhattacharya said on Monday that the National Institutes of Health is helping to collect Americans' private medical records from the government and commercial databases for government use. The records include prescription records from pharmacies, lab testing, genomics records from the Department of Veterans Affairs and Indian Health Service, private insurance claims, and data from smartwatches and fitness trackers. So cancel your fitness tracker, all right? Because I wouldn't trust them at all. Now, the NIH is also working on an agreement to secure Medicare and Medicaid data, said Bhattacharya, who said that select outside researchers will be able to access and study it, but not download the collected data from the registry. Oh, okay, but they can still see it, though. Access it, study it, probably take some pictures, whatever. Oh, but they can't download it. Oh, okay, that's great. Sure. And we're supposed to trust him on that. Right. Why are they doing this? Well, apparently it's all to prove his already disproven crackpot insane theory that vaccines or other environmental factors are the cause of autism. What it is in reality is an invasion of privacy that I believe may be a precursor to eliminating autistic people, whom Kennedy falsely claimed will never pay taxes or work or date or get married. That is just not true. That is extremely harmful and ignorant at the very least. This is Nazi talk. Okay, this is the what was it? The eaters talk. Okay, that kind of rhetoric where, well, they're just useless eaters, and it's the stuff that Nazis use to try to get rid of the disabled. Doesn't this violate privacy? You goddamn right it does. There's a ton of red flags here. Aside from Kennedy's horrific and untrue statements on autism, Kennedy has also hired people like David Geyer. That is a figure who previously was criticized for treating autistic children with puberty blockers. Why? And why did this man get chosen to lead a federal study on the causes of autism? What? Why would he do that? It doesn't make any sense. Not only that, by the way. In addition, Geyer was also previously disciplined by Maryland regulators for practicing medicine without a license after peddling unproven and risky treatments he purported would cure autism. That is scary as hell. Absolutely scary as hell. Which is why, of course, this is all getting very, very negative reactions from people all over. One user on X, formerly Twitter, wrote, "This isn't about health. This is about control. It's about fear. It's about marking people like me, neurodivergent people." Yes. Another said RFK Jr.'s autism registry is a chilling overreach, tracking private medical data. It's not like they forget about HIPAA, the existence of it. In fact, this person says, tracking private data without consent violates HIPAA and echoes eugenics. It's not about health. It's about control. Stop this now. The best way to reduce the reported cases of autism is to scare patients into not getting their kids tested for it because they'll be added to a government registry, said another. Number go down. Really bright minds over here. That actually does remind me of something that Trump did during COVID, which is to stop getting people tested. Well, if you don't get people tested, then the line does not go up, it go down. And I think they're going to do that approach for people with autism. Autistic people, it's scary as hell, okay? This is going to lead autistic people going into hiding and masking even harder, which, by the way, masking has horrific effects on people's mental health. Okay, if you're forced to mask, that is incredibly tiring and damaging. And think about it too. We were starting to get to a place where people didn't or feel like they had to mask all the time to get by. Now, there was still a lot of work to do on that, right? But it was getting better. More people were getting diagnosed, and there were, treatments, like things that were helping people deal with this and not have to mask. Now we're going backwards. Now we're looking at getting put in a government database by people who are already, by a government that is already disappearing migrants and have erased trans people. That's what's going on. Now, another user says, starting a disease registry to identify disabled people is exactly how the Nazi euthanasia program worked, just wasn't limited to one disability. RFK Jr. is a eugenicist, and you can't convince me otherwise. Also, autism isn't a disease, but I digress. Another said autism is not a disease. Even if it was, RFK proposed disease registry is not designed to help, but to marginalize, stigmatize, and harm. And then adds, it violates right to privacy. This is what happens when you appoint a non-doctor, anti-medicine, hate-motivated hack to lead HHS. Now there's more. Dr. Joel Shulkin, a pediatrician who puts out TikTok videos, asked this in one of them: how are they going to collect all this data without violating HIPAA and privacy protection? How are they going to de-identify all the data so it cannot be misused against people who are involved in it? And what are they planning to do with that data once they finish their so-called study? These are important questions from an actual doctor, someone who actually knows what they're talking about, unlike RFK Jr., who does not. One of the responses to that, by the way, came from a commenter who said this: the end result of this will be that people will start to hide their family members who have disabilities. And that brings me to, by the way, RFK Jr. and his personal experience with that. You see, RFK had a sister named Rosemary. Rosemary was lobotomized at the age of 23 for having, we don't necessarily know what exactly she had. Maybe a form of neurodivergence. All they said is that she was irritable and difficult. Oh, irritable and difficult. Okay, and so how they fixed that was literally taking out pieces of her brain, which left her permanently incapacitated and unable to speak. She had the mind of a 2-year-old. This procedure absolutely destroyed her life because she was irritable and difficult at first. So they had to do it. That's what they said. She ended up spending most of her life hidden from the public in an institution in Jefferson, Wisconsin. Her family didn't visit her, didn't see her. Her mother didn't visit for 20 years. Her father didn't visit at all. Yeah, no, what daughter? This is what they did to the disabled back then. And this is what they'll do again if RFK Jr. gets a chance to do it. And guess what? He does. Disabled people, remember, were looked upon with shame. They were locked away and given so-called treatments that were just barbaric. This is what we used to do as a country. And it wasn't all that long ago that we were doing it. So, I mean, this is why the autism community is so worried about this. And not just autism, by the way. The neurodivergent community are so concerned about allowing a quack like RFK Jr. to gather up all their private information and stick them in a database. No. If you are not concerned, then either you're not paying attention or you agree with the elimination of the disabled. And in which case, that would make you a Nazi. Awful to go backward on this? Absolutely it is. Absolutely awful. Okay. Kennedy needs to be removed. He's a danger to all areas of our nation's health. I couldn't agree more on that. That's for sure. All right. Moving on. Let's talk about Florida.
Florida is ground zero for the nursing home. I mean, we're God's waiting room.
Oh boy. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis apparently used public money to give to his wife's charity, which then got cycled back into helping Ron DeSantis. Big shocker. According to reports from the Miami Herald, Florida government had redirected part of a settlement to a state-affiliated charity overseen by his wife rather than returning it to state and federal coffers. A move that contradicts previous claims, of course, that the money was an independent donation from a private healthcare contractor. So what happened? So the Miami Herald reported on Tuesday that they found a draft agreement between the Florida administration and Centene. Centene happens to be the state's largest Medicaid contractor who was caught overbilling. They were overbilling the government. Okay. Now, they overbilled by about $67 million. So, oh, look, more Medicaid fraud. Great. And of course, it happened in Florida. But it gets worse. Okay. Rather than getting the full $67 million settlement back from Centene, $10 million of it went to Hope, Florida, which happens to be overseen by Casey DeSantis, Ron DeSantis' wife. Now, the settlement finalized in September 2023 was a result of a negotiation stemming from allegations that Centene had overcharged Florida taxpayers for prescription medications. The $10 million were then distributed to the two nonprofits that are not required to disclose how they spend the money. The outlet detailed, these groups later transferred $8.5 million to a political committee tied to DeSantis' then chief of staff, James Uthmeier, now the state attorney general. Oh, would you look at that? It appears that Ron DeSantis and company are continuing the fine Florida tradition of defrauding Medicare and Medicaid. Yes, that's right. Great. Now, DeSantis claimed that this $10 million was just a cherry on top of the settlement. Oh, no. This company, Centene, they just decided out of the goodness of their own heart to give us an additional $10 million to my wife's charity. Which already, I mean, if that were the case, that would still be shady as hell. But no, it wasn't part of the settlement. It was part of the original overbilling identified in the draft agreement dated February 2022. The Herald added that the attorneys who worked in the early stages of the case, including Lawrence Diaz of the law firm Liston and Diaz, stated that they approached Florida about the issue and were unaware that any portion of the settlement would be redirected to a so-called charitable foundation. The firm was dismissed before the final deal was reached and did not receive any compensation for its work. Wow. DeSantis' office claims the settlement was legally sound and was beneficial to the taxpayers. How so? How sending $10 million to a DeSantis-run charity beneficial to the taxpayers? Kind of sounds like the swamp. Kind of sounds like corruption. A little bit of self-dealing here. And by the way, it doesn't just sound like that way to me and to those of you listening at home, but apparently even Republicans are not happy with this. State Representative Alex Andrade, who has been investigating this issue, said, quote, "This was Medicaid money that was squandered. Plain and simple." Yep. He also raised suspicion about the possibility that the funds were used for DeSantis' campaign against recreational marijuana. That's right. Saying that they were in no rush until suddenly they needed the cash to fund it. Now we're just trying to drill down on those whose bright idea it was to carve out the $10 million for Hope, Florida. I mean, it should be fairly obvious here. He used that money to funnel it to a charity, which then funneled it to his own political committees to then do a campaign against legalized cannabis. That's it. That's what happened. The amendment, by the way, to legalize recreational marijuana happened to be defeated. It's almost like that $10 million actually really helped with their whole program. House Speaker Daniel Perez said that it appears that DeSantis transferred the $10 million to Hope, Florida in the dead of night. In the dead of night. And apparently in his basement. Okay, so yes, this is incredibly shady. Huge scandal. Now, hold on here. This scandal isn't just going to rock the DeSantis administration. It's also threatening to destroy the candidacy of Casey DeSantis, who is looking to replace Ron when his term is up. So now, here's the thing, though. Will it really hurt Casey DeSantis? I mean, Rick Scott pulled off America's biggest Medicare fraud, and he still became governor. And now he's a senator. So, I mean, yeah, I don't know. Maybe stealing from Medicare and Medicaid is not really frowned upon in Florida. I mean, if you could be Rick Scott and pull that off and still win, then I guess there's still hope for Casey. Which doesn't surprise me at all, considering that it is still Florida. Oh, yeah. Absolutely ridiculous. All right, so I'm going to switch gears here, and I am going to go after Rahm Emanuel. Everyone's least favorite Democrat. At least I would hope so. What is it with Florida and scamming Medicare? I know, right? Insanity. All right. Rahm Emanuel got an earful from a liberal political podcaster named Jennifer Welch. Now, she hosts the I've Had It podcast. And true to the name of the program, she apparently has had it with the former Obama chief of staff and neoliberal hack. In fact, during a conversation about where the Democratic Party went wrong, Welch went off.
Okay, the only room we were do really well was the bathroom, and that's the smallest room in the house.
That is such bullshit. That is total bullshit. That is buying into the right-wing media narrative, and I'm so sick of Democrats like you selling out and saying this. You know who talks about trans people more than anybody? MAGA. MAGA is the most genital obsessed political party I have ever seen. Kamala Harris talked about home ownership. She talked about kitchen table issues. Trump's over there droning on about Hannibal Lecter. Are you kidding me? This is where the Democrats lose because we're playing the game with the rule book. They've ripped the rule book up and are cramming it down everybody's throat. And Democrats are upset because Joe Biden pardoned his son. We got to fucking fight. They're the gender obsessed weirdos, not us. We're the ones who fight for Social Security. We fight for Medicare. And yeah, we're not going to bully trans people. We're not going to fucking do it. Fine.
Oh, hook it into my veins. Oh, I love it. Look, she's right. Trans people did not cause the Democrats to lose. Okay? He's wrong. What then was the problem here? Economic issues. Democrats not fighting hard enough for their base, not representing their base. Now, I'm not saying that Harris didn't have some good plans. She did, yes. But her problem is that she's too much like Rahm Emanuel. She distanced herself from the left, didn't really advocate for trans people at all, okay? Hung out with Liz freaking Cheney, crowed about how our military is the most lethal, and wouldn't come out against the genocide in Gaza. Okay, so that's the problem here. Her campaign not only failed to turn out the mythical moderate Republican, because that's what they were trying to do, they also failed to turn out Democrats. Democrats that had voted for Joe Biden previously. So the base was very, very clear, okay? Stop sending weapons to be used in a genocide against Palestinians and distance yourself from Joe Biden. Do something to rein in the corporations, help people with student loans, raise people's wages, and actually fight against Republicans instead of calling them our friends and agreeing with them on things, okay? Now, that said, she continued with her criticism and didn't pull any punches.
It upsets me. It upsets me so much because we live here in this red state, and you see the damage of it. When I see politicians that are supposed to be leaders in the Democratic Party buy into the narrative that Republicans have defined us by, instead of fighting and saying, you're the weirdos that are obsessed with it. Yeah, we're not going to bully some trans kid. And we buy into their narrative. It's why I think we lose. And I have to live in a state where rape victims can't get an abortion because of this bullshit. And so I'm going to fight till the bitter end, and I'm not going to let some MAGA moron define what progressive values are. And I think it's a really dangerous president, Mr. Emanuel. I'm sorry, but I have to push back. And I'm
given
not
how
some
much you talk
coastal
about
elite
living in
liberal.
listen.
I love that. She just steamrolled right all over him. I love it. I love it. All right, look, here's the thing about Rahm Emanuel. This guy's a POS who happened to be one of the closest people to President Joe Biden. This is a guy who was also mayor of Chicago when they covered up evidence of the murder of Laquan McDonald by a police officer. They covered it up for over a year while Rahm Emanuel was facing re-election. That's who this guy is. All right. He even went to court, by the way, to prevent dash cam footage of a clear murder from being released because he thought, oh man, I'm not going to get reelected if this gets out. That was just when he was the mayor of Chicago. And even before that, he was a piece of crap. All right. During his tenure as Obama's chief of staff, he made sure that the stimulus package in 2008 was directed to the rich. He also nearly killed the ACA before he was even launched. Look, I've said before, ACA, nowhere near enough. And this guy says, no, it's too much. The Heritage Foundation healthcare plan is too progressive. Too much. We can't do that. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. And again, we're not even talking about universal healthcare, which this guy helped kill. He reportedly would make backroom deals to protect the interests of the drug industry, the pharmaceutical industry, and the for-profit hospital industry in exchange for campaign money. Even if it meant reversing campaign promises to include a public option or other policies. Public option. But again, he thought the ACA was too much. And even Obama was like, no, dog, I'm going to have to ignore you on this one and at least push for the ACA. And yet, this is a great example of somebody who pushed Obama to the right. He's pushing everything to the right, and he wants to push the Democratic Party continuously to the right. That's why he's trying to throw trans people under the bus. Look, at the end of the day, this guy works for his large corporate donors against the will of Democratic voters. And so I'm not shocked at all that he continues to blame the Democratic Party's losses on not being anti-trans enough. When in reality, of course, the policies that he tried hardest to stop, taxing the rich, regulating Wall Street, criminal justice reform, probably would have actually helped Harris win if she had been stronger on those issues. Okay. But again, what Harris had was a bunch of Obama staffers, Biden staffers that were just like Rahm Emanuel. Telling, oh, no, you can't go too left. Oh, no, why don't you suck up to Liz Cheney? You know, talk about the lethal military. No. This guy hates progressive policies, and he absolutely despises progressives. Remember, he once called them the Arsler. Yeah. So, you know, yeah. I do love that even liberal podcasters, and I don't know her specific policies. Maybe she's more progressive than I'm thinking that she is. Okay. But even if she's not, you've got liberal podcasters calling him out to his face. I mean, I love that. Look, throwing trans people under the bus is not progressive. Blaming them for the loss of one of the most centrist milquetoast campaigns for the Democrats have run against a literal fascist is doing nothing but, enabling fascists. Saying, oh, well, of course you need to get rid of, ignore trans people. No. We need to defend trans people vigorously. Explain to the American people who might not understand trans issues why the right wing is wrong. Okay? Look, Rahm Emanuel, speaking of things that are wrong, should be the face of all that has gone wrong with the Democrats over the last 20, 30 years. Their embrace of neoliberalism, the rejection of progressive policies are what got us where we are today. That's what got us Donald frickin' Trump. All right? And I happen to believe that the people that got us here should be the last ones that we should go to try to get us out. So, Rahm, sit the F down, shut the F up, and let us actually win. Let progressives take over, and we'll show you how to win. I watch her stuff. She's a standard lib who's open to progressive causes. See, once again, like, seeing, those are the people that you can turn. Those are the people that you can, get on your side that are actually willing to work with you. I like that. And I like that people have an open mind. And I love how she once again said, we're not going to bully trans kids. Yes. Yes. Rahm Emanuel wants to run for president. Oh, yeah. Let's see that happen. Oof. Because he represents only one thing. Yeah. All right. If a person is gay and seeks God and has goodwill, who might judge him? Said Pope Francis. We must restore hope to young people, help the old, be open to the future, spread love. Yeah, again, I may have had my issues with Pope Francis, but, at least he was decent. In that way, there's still obviously a lot of problems with sexual abuse in the church. And that also needs to be, dealt with. And I don't think Francis did enough on that. But I don't expect any of these Catholic leaders to really address that head on. But okay, anyway. It's called the Overton window, which is what is acceptable in politics, and we have shifted to the right big time. Yeah, unfortunately. All right, so did I miss something, or is Jeff going back to going live? I have for the last couple of weeks. So welcome. Unfortunately, I wrap up the show. So you got here right at the end. Before I go though, Vertical Flats writes, let no pope be called good as long as there's pedos in the church. Yeah, I did mention that. Thank you for that super chat, Vertical Flats. And thank you for the next one, saying that Joe Manchin was worse. Yeah, Joe Manchin was pretty garbage. So I agree with you on that one. But still, Rahm Emanuel, really, really bad. I don't know if he's... I do think that his influence on Obama and influence on politics is actually probably worse. Even though Joe Manchin was an absolute D-bag. All right. Yes, we'll see you all tomorrow here on the show. Same time-ish. Same place, obviously. And, if you want to go and watch the show, the whole thing, without ads, you can sign up to be a patron, support the show, and you get a podcast version of the show ad-free. But, if you don't want to go in that direction, that's totally fine. You can become, you can just watch the show. None of my stuff is paywalled, so you can rewind it or watch the video clips that come out, all that stuff. So there's plenty of ways that you can enjoy the show. And so, the ones that help us, obviously, that helps me out the most is Patreon or becoming a channel member and all that stuff. So, but anyway, thank you to those who did sign up. Thank you again, Vertical Flats, for the very kind super chats. And thank you again to everyone who has watched. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. And check out the video clips that I will be posting later on. Hey, Brown Note, thank you for becoming a channel member on YouTube. Hit the join button below. And you can support us that way, just like the Brown Note Thank you. All right, everybody. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Love you all. Take care of yourselves, your families, and your communities. Make sure to take care of yourself. Keep yourself in the fight for progressive values and against this fascist authoritarian government. And, well, you're going to need that energy. We're all going to need that energy to fight and to bring back, I don't know, not just bring back a government that is not fascist, but also to push forward to something bigger and better, and one that serves the needs of real people, of actual people, and not just corporations and the very, very wealthy. So anyway, that fight will continue probably for the rest of my life, but that fight will continue, and I will be here to do it, and hopefully you will join me as well. Thank you all. Love you, and we'll see you guys back here tomorrow.